Hi everyone, welcome to IT How To. My name's Amit, and in today's video we will be showing you how to set up a Linux lab. So basically what that consists of is one virtual machine running Ubuntu 20 Server, and within that you'll be running multiple versions of Linux as containers within that virtual machine. So after the intro we will get started. See you soon. Hi everyone, so I am now logged into my virtual machine and it's running Ubuntu Server. So on Ubuntu Server I will show you the list of containers. Each of them is running an instance of CentOS7. So the command to list my containers is sudo LXC list. Okay, I'll put in my password. And as you can see, I'm running 50 CentOS7 servers, and each of them are containers. So this is actually a really good way to set up a portable Linux lab if you have limited equipment. So I'm actually running this on an 8-year-old laptop. So the next part of the video will show how I set this up to get, how I set this up in the first place. So I'll see you in the next part of the video. Thank you. Okay, so we're now going to get started. So at this point, we're going to add a virtual machine running Ubuntu 20 Server on Oracle VirtualBox. I am allocating 6 GB of RAM, and I will allocate 100 GB of hard disk space as follows. Okay, so in relation to the system, we're going to allocate 4 virtual processors. And we're now starting the virtual machine, and we are selecting the Ubuntu 20 Server ISO image. And at this point, the install process will start. And what we will do is we'll speed up the rest of the video that covers the installation process, and then I'll get back to you once we're ready to show you the next steps. Thank you. The install process is finished, and we are now ready to reboot the virtual machine. And we're just waiting for the virtual machine to reboot. Okay, so it looks like I have forgotten to unmount the CD-ROM, so let's see what we can do to get around that. So it looks like what we will do is simply shut down the VM, go to settings, go to storage, and now it looks like the virtual CD-ROM or the ISO image has now been ejected. It looks empty now. Okay, we can now proceed. So we're now going to restart the virtual machine. Okay, so the virtual machine is now restarted. I'm actually just trying to log in directly on the terminal, but I'm getting these messages popping up, which is a little bit annoying. So just waiting for them to go away. That's annoying as well. Okay, I'll try logging in now with the user account that was created during the installation process, which in this case is a carrier. Okay, as you can see, there are a few updates that need to be installed and applied. So we'll do that. Okay, bear in mind there might be a few mistakes, as I was recording this video first thing on Friday morning before work. So I do apologize about any mistakes you may see. So the first command is sudo apt-get update -y to update the repository information. And then it's sudo apt-get upgrade -y to actually download, then install and apply the updates. And there was 22 of them. Okay, so what I did was when I was recording this video, I actually didn't record any sound or narration because I don't want to annoy my neighbors by actually recording sound first thing in the morning, whether it's like 6:30, because that would if a neighbor did that to me, I would be annoyed. So what I did was I pre-recorded this video and I'm now recording a narration over it 2 days later. Okay, what I will do is I'll speed up the next part of the video to remove these boring bits, then I'll get back to you once the updates have been applied. Okay, the updates have now been applied and we will reboot our virtual machine and wait for it to start up. And the virtual machine is now starting up. That was quick, and I'm now going to log back in with the user account that was created. Okay, so we are logged back in. And I've just shut down the VM. Okay, we're going to go to the network adapter and change it from NAT to bridged. And we're going to start the VM back up again. That will allow me to actually log into the virtual machine remotely via SSH from my host operating system. And the host operating system in this case is actually Ubuntu 20 desktop, which is running on my old HP laptop. Okay, so we're waiting for the virtual machine to start up and we're going to log back in. Okay, I want to check the IP address, but the relevant command is not installed, so I'm now going to go ahead and install it, which is sudo apt install -net-tools -y, and I'll put in my password, and it's now going to install nettools, and then I can run the ifconfig command, which will tell me the IP address of my virtual machine as follows. Right, okay, that's good. I can now use that IP address to log in to the virtual machine remotely via SSH. And as you can see, at this point in the video, it's now just past 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday. So I must have started recording this at about 5 o'clock in the morning on Friday. Hence, I didn't record the narration straight away. So I'm now doing the narration at 11 AM on Sunday, 2 days after. Okay, so I've now logged into the VM remotely. Okay, I'm going to increase the size of the text so that it's more visible on this video. Okay, the next thing we need to do is install the guest editions. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So it looks like I've inserted the guest editions ISO image and I now need to mount that manually. And I'm waiting for the past version of myself from 2 days ago to do something. Not sure what he's thinking, but it is very early in the morning, so probably needs a bit of caffeine. Okay, he's now going ahead and mounting the ISO image. and he forgot to run sudo, so he's going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, the ISO image is mounted. We're going to navigate to the ISO image and run the relevant scripts. So let's have a look. And again, forgot to run sudo. Well, it is 6 AM, well, just past 6 AM in the morning, so that can be forgiven, I guess. So we're running the script. Okay, it's run the script, but it says GCC and make have not been installed. So I won't cover GCC and make in this video, but I'm just going to go ahead and install them and then rerun this script to install the guest additions. So you'll see that happening in the next few seconds. Okay, so it looks like before we do that, we're going to reboot the system. So we're just waiting for the system to reboot. And it should start up very, very quickly because it's actually not CentOS, sorry, it's Ubuntu 20 Server, which runs systemd, and it's extremely quick to reboot, as you can see there. So we're going to log back in with that user account. Excellent, so we log back in. It looks like we need to, it looks like we need to mount the guest additions ISO image again, so we'll go ahead and do that. And re-enter the sudo password. And we'll rerun the install script for the guest additions. Actually, before we do that, we need to install GCC and make. And then once that's done, we can install the guest additions again. Okay, so the libraries have now been installed, and we'll rerun the script to install the guest additions. And again, forgot to run sudo, sorry. Note to self, if recording videos in future very early in the morning, drink lots and lots and lots of coffee. Okay, the guest additions have now been installed, and we're now going to reboot the VM again as follows. Okay, so the VM's now rebooted. And it's now back up again. So we're now going to log back into it. So I'm just checking it's back up by pinging it. Okay. Not too sure why I'm doing that. Okay, yeah. So what we're going to do next is to create an entry in the host file for the virtual machine. Right, so that we can basically, so we're going to create an entry in the host file as follows. So that's the IP address of the virtual machine. And we'll create an entry called lab. So instead of logging in via IP address in future, we'll log in just via lab instead. Okay, that makes sense. So if I ping lab, I'm getting a return from the virtual machine's IP address. Okay, which is good. And the next thing I'm going to do is create an SSL certificate or an SSH certificate to enable automatically to log in as the Ecreet account to the virtual machine. So Okay, I'm going through that process now. Now, if you want me to cover this particular process in more detail, please message me in the comments below, and I can cover the process of creating SSH keys in a future video. Okay, so I'm doing that now, and now I can just simply log in as Ecreet at lab, and it will automatically let me in. Okay, for my convenience, which is good. At this point, the VM is now installed, and we've done the basics. And what we need to do next is to install the container technology LXC and LXD. Okay, so before we do that, I'm actually going to create a snapshot of the VM, so that once we've installed the containers, we will be good to go. But if there is any issues at this point, I can always revert back to the snapshot state, then try again. Okay, so and it's usual practice in IT when you work in virtualization to create snapshots before undertaking any major configuration changes and then deleting the snapshots afterwards. Okay, so the snapshot of the VM has been created, and we're now going to proceed to the next part of the video, which is to install LXD. And so that's the command there, and I will put all these commands in the description box below. Okay, so we've installed LXD, and now we're going to initialize it as follows: sudo space LXD space init. And I'm just going to run through a wizard. So LXD clustering, no. Everything else there so far is default. I'm going to set the size of the loop device to 50 gigabytes. Not going to connect to a MAS server. I will use IPv4. I will not use IPv6. I do want LXD to be available over the network, and the rest is default. Okay, so LXD and LXC have now been installed, so I can now go ahead and start creating Linux containers. So I find LXD to be very useful to create a small lab running multiple instances of Linux operating systems. So that's the command I'm going to use to create my first CentOS7 container. LXC space launch space images colon CentOS/7 space then the name of the container, which in this case would be CentOS. So it's now downloading the CentOS image. Once it's downloaded, it will go ahead and create the container. And then we can run the command LXC space list to list all running instances of containers. And this container has been given its IP address as well by LXD. We are now going to run the command, which is LXC space exec space CentOS, and I've forgotten again early in the morning, so I've forgotten to run the full command properly, so I will run that again. So it's LXC space exec space CentOS space bash, and as you can see, I am now inside the container, and I'm trying to run the command ifconfig, but I need to install the relevant tools to allow me to run ifconfig, which in this case is yum space install space net -tools space -y. Okay, so yum is used in CentOS and Red Hat to install packages, while apt is installed in Debian and Ubuntu to install packages. Okay, and there you can see there's the IP address of my container. and I'm now going to look at the version of the OS, which in this case is CentOS 7.8. Don't get confused, because basically CentOS is a free version of Red Hat, so it's 100% binary compatible. So you'll see some Red Hat references in CentOS, but this is actually CentOS and not Red Hat. Okay, so we've now exited out of the container, and we're now going to stop the container. And it looks like what I'm going to do now is to power off my Linux VM, or the Ubuntu 20 server VM, because I've now finished with it. And I'm happy, so I'm now going to delete the snapshot that was created earlier. The snapshot has been deleted, and what I'm going to do next is to create an export of the VM, and I'm going to export it as an OVA file. So that's another usual practice that I like to practice, is once I've finished setting up the server, I create a template for the server. So in Oracle VirtualBox, I use OVA files to create templates. So this process this morning has taken quite a bit of time. So what I tend to do is I'll spend a lot of time creating a virtual machine to my liking, and sometimes that can take a few hours. Then once I'm happy with that, I'll export the virtual machine to an OVA template if I'm working at home. Then in future, should I need to rebuild this VM, I can simply import it from a template, and that process is a lot quicker. At work we use VMware, so we use a similar procedure to actually create templates of our virtual machines, and we always deploy new virtual machines from templates. Okay, so I will speed this part of the video up, and I'll get back to you once the template has been created. So the OVA file has been created, and we're now going to test it. So we're actually going to import the OVA file to create a new virtual machine so that we can test it works. So you can see what I'm doing there. I do have other YouTube videos that explain the process of importing and exporting VM, so I will put a link to them in the description box below. I'm going to give it a name, which is the same name as before, and I'll add import test to the end of it. And we're now waiting for the virtual machine to be imported. So I'll speed this process up, and I'll get back to you once this part has been completed. Okay, so the OVA file has been imported. Okay, so before I carry on, I'm going to check the available space on my host operating system as follows. So it looks like I have 123 gigabytes free. Okay, that looks okay. And I'm now going to start the VM that has been imported. And this is actually an identical copy of the virtual machine we created earlier in this video. And we are just waiting for it to start up. Okay, so because it is identical, we can basically log in using the same technique as before, and everything else has already been set up. So you can see I'm logging in, and for all intents and purposes, this is actually the same virtual machine as before. And just to test this out, we're going to start the container that we created earlier. And I'm now inside the container, and I'm running ifconfig, and I can see the IP address of that container. And we're going to run this command again to show us the version of CentOS. And now we've exited out of the container, and we are going to stop the container. And we are now going to power off the virtual machine. Okay, and I need to enter my password again. Okay, so I'm happy with that, so I'm going to go ahead and delete the imported VM. If you've got to the end of this video, thank you very much. Please like this video, and also please subscribe to my channel should you wish to see further videos from myself, and do not forget to hit the notification bell should you wish to be notified when I upload further videos to this channel. And thank you very much for your time.